Okay, this is the model I'm going to try to build to represent the cap at the end of the gastroscope. This black plastic represents the sleeve that the instruments will be coming out. I'm going to hide that now and start from scratch here. So I'm in my top view. I'm going to create a polygon cylinder, and really all I'm doing in this exercise is creating two cylinders and having one act as a template for the other. So I'm going to start with this small one first. This cylinder is only going to be 0.75 radius, and the number of axis divisions is important because I'm going to double that when I make a larger cylinder, and that just seemed to work out through trial and error to give me the best match I wanted. So I'm going to assign a little bit of a darker Lambert shader to this just to make it easier for us to see. Create another cylinder. This time I'm going to make the radius a little bigger. I'm going to make the height actually a little smaller. I'm going to double the axis divisions. I'm going to leave everything else the same. And again say create, and now you can see I've got that one. And maybe I'll just quickly make a duplicate network and give that one just a little bit of a different shade so that it's easier to distinguish the two. Okay, so now we have just two different colors of this similar. So I'm going to move this. I should also say, I'm sorry, I have under shading here, I have wireframe on shaded turned on because I'm going to need to align the different edges on these. So I'm going to take this small one and move it out to a spot that approximates about where I want to be for the one of the different ports. I'm trying to my best to line this up on this line. Now, I theoretically I should be able to slide it right along there by snapping. So if you remember, since this pivot point's at the center, I hold down the letter C and middle mouse drag on that edge, and it snaps this now right onto that edge. With the big one selected, the larger cylinder, I'm going to go into these inputs, and I'm going to increase the subdivision on the cap. Now the reason I'm doing that is because, again, I need more edges, and I'm going to end up trying to trace this small one. So I'm going to actually now select the small one and assign it to a layer, and we'll call that gray small so I know where it is. And I'm going to make that actually a template now because I don't need to worry about manipulating it. And now I'm going to get the edge, one of the edges I just made. Remember, I clicked this and then came under the inputs and said subdivision caps and increased it to 4 to get these edges. If you use the translate and rotate and scale tools on this cylinder, this input information will not work correctly. So you have to be sure, if you're going to do something like this, that you make sure you've got you're thinking that you're only going to work in here. Okay, you're only going to use this input options to make changes. So I'm going to scale that edge so that that point on its vertex matches the tip of the template here. And I'm going to scale this little one inside ring so that it also matches the tip. And then I'm going to take this ring and I'm going to bring it large enough that it goes through the tips of that on this edge here. Okay, these the template. All right, now what I want to do is manipulate the vertices of the large. So I'm going to move that and I'm going to line it up. So they all are lining up on that template. Okay. And I'll take this one, go there. Take this one, go there. I'm going to take the middle one and go right to the middle. Now, if I was clever, one thing I didn't experiment with is whether I should combine these two and then somehow use that to allow me to snap to the vertice, but I can't figure out a way quite to do that. So this has been getting my best results. All right, now what I want to do is I could select the object, the polygon, and do a couple things with the mirror geometry, but I'm not going to do that. It's just, I think it's easier here. First thing I want to do is I want to get rid of all the faces other than that very top layer. So I'm going to put on face. I'm going to hide this area light here because it's in my way. And I'm going to put the face, I can select all the faces and hit delete, and that leaves me then with just this disk, if you will. And you can see from the top view, the disk has got really areas I don't need. So I'm going to break this into quarters. And this is what I meant. I could select this and then go under mesh and say mirror cut and mirror geometry, but I'm going to just do this by hand. So I'm just going to say face. I think it's simple enough. I can just delete and again drag a box and delete, and I don't want that last piece of the pie, if you will. So now I have a quarter, and my point here is still snapped to 0, 0, 0. So if I select the object, you can see my pivot point is still right there at the origin. Okay, so with that selected, now I will use some of these tools. I'll go to mirror geometry, and let's make this half, which is positive x, I believe. And then if I select the object again and then say negative z, I now have the opposite side. So now I have all of these four sides. Okay, and I could have been smarter, so let's be smarter. I'm going to undo that for a second. Before I do that, I'm going to hide my template and delete these four faces. These represent my hole. And if you look at number 3, if I smooth it, you see it's not too bad. This edge is round, this is round. This is a little bit off here. That center point is retracted in, but when we stay on one, I think when we repeat that process we just did where we mirror the geometry, I think you'll find that that will hold it then. Okay. Okay, so now I have my shape. I could do some modifying. I certainly want to maybe see if there's anything that's not a valid polygon. You can see right here, for example, these little triangles aren't helping me at all. So let's take this edge, this edge, this edge, this edge, that edge. See right now that's a triangle, right? 1, 2, 3. But if I say edit mesh, and remember you always want to say delete the edge from this menu, not delete it. Okay, now you can notice now I do have a four-sided. Everybody is four-sided. This is not poo. I don't know how that one got three-sided before I had it nice and four-sided. Okay. Well, I could make that safer by taking my multi-cut tool, going from there to there, and do the same thing on each one of these pieces. And then I could do the same thing, here. And then I think we could get rid of some more edges. And as a result, I believe we will finally get all four-sided polygons here. So again, kind of break off that little piece of pizza at the end. Okay, so now we're back to where we seem to have more four-sided. We can look at number 3 and you see it's really not too bad. Pretty symmetrical, pretty generally even spacing. Okay, so let's save this. So in case my crashes or anything, we don't have any issues here. So, okay, let's go back to number 1. I could, quite honestly, just to make things a little more symmetrical, grab these 4 vertices and scale them towards the center. And let's see what that does. This seems to give us a little more symmetry there. Okay. All right, now obviously the next problem is, we've got this collection here. How do we get it into our full piece of geometry? So if you think about it, what we can do is grab the object, and just to make it easy for me, I'm going to move it. So I'm going to modify center the pivot. I'm going to snap it by holding the letter X, then to 0, 0, 0. I'm going to delete by type my history. Now I don't have any access to that. I lost that anyway, but anytime you delete the history, just be aware that you've lost any of that input information. I'll freeze the transformation so I get rid of that negative there. And then I'm going to say extrude, and I'll raise it up a little bit. Okay, so now I have this flat disc. It looks like my tracing's a little off. These aren't quite, my holes aren't as symmetrical as they might have been, but I think you get the idea. What I'm going to do is go back to the number 1 setting. I'm going to grab that edge, scale it smaller, and move it up and out, because it seems to me the lights and the camera on the lens. I'm guessing if you really had to do this for a project, as far as an advertisement or marketing, that the client would be nice enough to give you some specs, such that you'd have some relative sizes. You wouldn't have to guess or use a photo as your reference. These 4 vertices here feel a little bit they could be improved a little bit. So now I've got a better, and what bothers me is this particular one, that one spot looks like it should be out a little further on these 2. And I think probably over here somewhere that same distortions exists, but I don't notice it as much. So we'll just leave it alone. Okay, so now we're going to extrude this whole disc to make the rest. So here's my side view or my front view, whatever you want to look at. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to, with the object selected, I'm going to delete its history. Now once I do that, any hope for this input information is gone. But once we started doing all this manipulation, we lost that input anyway. So I'm going to delete the history. I'm going to freeze the transformation, and I'm going to center its pivot. And then I'm going to hold the X key down and snap. So now I'm at the bottom. Freeze its transformation one more time. Now I'm going to extrude it. So I'm going to come up to this edge, 1 unit, what the software sees as 2.527. And just because I don't want to have to remember that number, I'm going to change it to 2.5. And I don't know why it gives me this thickness. It seems to give me a thickness all the time by default, so I'm going to get rid of that thickness. But I do need divisions. And I'm going to end up making 5 of them so that I can manipulate or reposition them, if you will, to get and hold that edge. And I'll space these other ones out a little bit better. So you can see over here I kind of have a pretty even spacing there then. I'm sorry, I think I actually put the thing right up to it. Just want to make sure I didn't bury it up there. Yeah, okay. Okay, so let's see what that looks like. Okay, that's a little better. Just want to keep these kind of evenly, or I do want to be them evenly spaced. Okay, so now I've got my ports, or these holes in the cap, and if I hit number 3, and let's put a, well, you know what, one more thing we need to do. If we're going to make these, let's put us back into the Y up. Let's insert edge loops along the top edges of these holes to keep them from rounding too severely when we smooth this. Okay, and let's put a material on this that's a little more similar to what we might see. So it looked to me like it was a white plastic, and I have a blend built a little bright, but there you go. All right, now I didn't put an edge down there. I don't think we're going to see it. That's why I didn't bother, but for those purists in the group, I will put an extra edge here so that also maintains more of a crisp plastic-like edge. All right, now go back to my top view, and what I want is, it seems like there's a black sleeve between each inside of each one of these. So I'll take my cap now and put it back to the number 1 setting, and I'll create a cylinder. Now I remember the height to be 2.5, and the radius for the cylinder, oh, I'm sorry, I don't want to create a cylinder, I want to create a pipe. The reason I want to create a pipe is because I want a thickness. I want an edge. So 0.75 was what I made the original small cylinder, so I'll leave that alone, and I'll make this 2.5, which was what we did. And we'll make the thickness, let's change that to 1.1. Let's create and move that and see if we can position it into one of these spaces, the bigger spaces. So to see it, we're close again with the symmetry there. You could get, we could take these points, and now I have to drag to make sure I get all of them and move them a little better. So I'm dragging so that I'm hopefully getting the entire column of vertices. Alright, now we got a pretty good fit there. So I can take this object and duplicate it and move it up to the other large port that's where the other comes out. I'm not 100% sure I'm perfectly aligned here, so I'll just rough out, and again look for the vertices, and by dragging a box I'm theoretically getting all the way down. Oops. So I think we're pretty good shape. Keep getting that other thing, so it's close enough. All right, now let's take this, duplicate it again, and scale it. I'm going to scale it in all axes simultaneously, and then I'll change the height. So again, we could do this probably a little more accurately with other techniques, but it's not like we're going to, if we were selling the device, it would be a different story versus we're just trying to include it in this explanation of what happened to this young lady. Okay, there we go. And then hopefully that's pretty close to the one below, so that we can kind of minimize how much time you have to watch me do this. So really you're probably done with this right now. You probably know everything you've seen, or you won't see anything new that you don't know how to do at this point. Okay, so I'm going to select those for sleeves, if you will, and I have a dark blue thong. See, I have this aversion to black. I think it's from painting, but I know electronically I shouldn't. But anyway, I still use that. And then we'll see. Oh, my things are all down below, right? So I have to get them up flush. Now these little ones are going to be too short, but I can at least get them all. Whoops. What did I do here? I picked up all of it now. So I'm upside down up here in the perspective window. The y-axis is down, so I'm going to drag that and bring it up. And then from this side view, I think what I can do, click on the yellow arrow, hold the C key down, and that's right, the shift is there. Alright, I'm just going to eyeball this. I could snap the pivot point to the bottom of the sleeve and then snap that to the curve there at the bottom, or the edge there at the bottom, but again, we don't need to be that. It still looks like they're all short, so I must have misunderstood my height, so I'll make them bigger. got the two big ones. Now I got to get the two little ones. Alright, so now we've kind of got 4 of them. What I would do at this point, go ahead and take these 4, freeze their transformations. I'm sorry, delete their history, freeze transformations. And then this is the, let's see, which is this? Okay, this is the cap. And these pipes, then I would just hold the shift key down, select, and middle mouse drag onto the cap. And now they're all a child of that cap. So later on when I animate that cap as part of the scope, they're not, they should be pretty much spoken for, all ready to go. And so we kind of get a pretty close view. Got like some, oh, my light's different now when I have this positioned, but you can get the idea. Let's go back out here a little bit and see how much. Hid my render window there. So one of my lights is casting a sharp edge there. I think that's the spotlight. I just have to readjust it. But you get the idea how that looks. And we saw the one originally, the way it's lit. So that's how we can make that.